Okay, hello. Happy Monday. Happens to be Monday in March, and welcome. My name is Linda Downey, and we're going to spend about 20 minutes talking about stress. Stress in your body, stress in the short term, what's going on then, stress when you hold stress for a long time, weeks, months, even years, and what happens in your body then. And so that you can start to see some patterns in your life. So not only what happens in your body, but what also you'll see how that affects how you manage your life, what things show up probably ongoingly in patterns. So that's the subject of tonight's conversation. Again, as you're joining, my name is Linda Downey. I am a transformational health and spiritual coach, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, have always been in health and wellness, and this is streaming in multiple places. So please say hello, or if you watch later on, watch the replay, say hello. I always like to try to connect and go back and answer any questions, acknowledge any comments that you leave. And if you have questions while we're going through, I can't see them from all the places, but I will definitely look. So what I want to do is really hop in and bring up this chart for you and go through this chart so that you can really get an idea. Let me see if I could do this. Take my picture out so you can just, no, let's see. No, I don't know how to do that. Okay, so I don't know how well you can see this, how big it is, especially some of these words over here. So I'm going to take my pointer and go through it. In case you can't see the pointer, I'll say what color I'm at so you can see green, yellow, and red, right? And I'm going to go through each of these stages and what you might notice in yourself, what you maybe are not noticing, but is still definitely happening, whether you're aware of it or not. Okay, so the way our nervous system is set up is we're supposed to be in rest most of the time. Rest meaning, feeling happy, feeling peaceful, feeling safe to live our lives and do all the things that we want to do. And then when something happens and we get the message, we get an understanding, oh, that's a threat. Oh, that's a problem. Oh, that's something I need to go deal with. Now we move into an acute, meaning short-term stress incident. So here's what happens. Let's first go back to when we're in rest and happy and peaceful and all those things. Okay. So that's the green area, because that's where we want to be, right? Green is good. Green is where we want to be spending most of our time. So just look, when we're in this green area, when you're living this way in your life, when your nervous system is here, we feel settled. We feel grounded, like safe, like we're rooted to something. If you feel like you're not grounded, that you're all over the place, right? Grounding, if I feel grounded, I feel like sure of myself, right? I feel calm and I can connect. I'm curious and open. So why is that important? Because as we get into the other stages, that shuts down. And then when we're not open, that affects how we problem solve. It affects how we communicate with people in our lives, how creative we are, because we're closed. We're like focused on the problem. So when you're open, you're able to not be guarded and just listen with curiosity and say, oh, tell me more about that. Why are you feeling that way? Let's come up with a solution together. That really affects relationships. So when people have been in stress for a long, long, long time, you can see what comes up in their relationships is a need to be right, a lack of patience in hearing the other person's side. We need to prove ourselves. That all comes from stress. That all comes from staying in a constant state of stress. Okay, over here on the right, again, these are small words, so I don't know if you can see it, but when you're in this restful state, it's called the parasympathetic. So your nervous system has two branches. One is for rest, one is for stress. When you're in rest, that's the parasympathetic branch. And here's what happens when you're in that place, when your nervous system is over here. You're able to digest your food well. So your digestion is happening. You're producing the right amount of stomach acid, and you're breaking down your food, and you're absorbing your nutrients. Intestinal motility. So you're moving your food appropriately. So if you have gut issues, if you suffer from constipation, if, lots of foods are a problem for you, or you always feel bloated or heavy, like just digestive issues, a whole umbrella of them, IBS, colitis, chronic issues, food sensitivities, anything like that, those develop when your nervous system is up here, because your digestive system goes down, it shuts down. So here, digestion, resistance to infection, that's your immune system. So you can resist bacterias and viruses much more easily when your body is in rest. You might notice, I did when I had when my nervous system was always triggered on, I got sick a lot. I always got bronchitis every year, or I always got different infections. When I learned how to get my body out of these stress states and back into rest, I very rarely get sick. I've been sick once this year. And that was the first time in a few years, in probably 3 years, that I had any kind of illness at all, because your body can handle what it needs to handle when your nervous system is where it needs to be, right? So if you're leaving comments right now, I can't see them because I have the chart up. So we'll get back to that. So if there's anything that you want to ask me, I can't see it in the moment, okay? But don't let that stop you from asking. So your immune system here is good. Your rest and recuperation, you sleep well and you feel rested when you wake up. Have you ever gone to sleep exhausted and you wake up and you've maybe slept a lot, or maybe you were in and out of sleep throughout the night? Either way, you wake up and you're exhausted. It's like you didn't even really have a good night's sleep. So you sleep well when your nervous system is here in this green area, in the parasympathetic. What else do we see here? Your health and vitality. You just have good energy. You look healthy. Your circulation is good. You produce oxytocin, which is the feel-good hormone. That's the hormone when we bond with other people, when we first fall in love in a romantic relationship, but also when we love our children, when we love others, oxytocin is present. So we have this feeling in our body of love. We have this rest. We have a sense of self. We are open to hearing other ideas. We're not guarded. We digest our food well. Can you see how that's where the body is meant to be, and how that would affect all the other aspects of your life, your relationships, how you show up at work, how rested you are shows up everywhere, how well you can come up with solutions and work with people and be creative. That shows up everywhere, in relationships, in our job, etc., right? So now back to what I started to say is, something happens and you perceive there's a problem, there's a threat. So right away, your body goes into what we call fight or flight. That's okay, there's a problem. I can see that I need to go deal with something. Now, the way that we're made, that should only happen when it's really a life-threatening threat, when it's really like, I need to run for my life. That's how it's supposed to be. In our modern day culture, we don't often have true life-threatening events. Sure, people do. People get, things happen in their lives, or they get medical news, etc., where they feel like their life is threatened. But even if you got a diagnosis in that moment, your life isn't threatened. If you can keep your body calm, you have a much better chance, back down here to the green, of supporting your immune system in healing. If you go into, oh my God, the doctor says I have this, and now you're panicking, you don't have access to all of the natural healing processes that your body's capable of. And you're not really in a life-threatening thing at the moment. That would be like somebody has a knife at your throat, right? You're not really there. You have time and space to deal with whatever it is you need to deal with. But we live like it's life-threatening, and we go into this fight or flight. So what happens in our mental and emotional state, now we switch over. Remember I was saying here's the parasympathetic, the rest. Over here is fight or flight, stress. So in an acute situation, when that first happens, this is what kicks in. We start to get worried, we get frustrated, irritated. So you could be out driving in your car and somebody irritates you. You could be at work and you're in a meeting and somebody raises their hand to speak and you're annoyed, you're frustrated, or you start to get worried and anxious. So we start here as the line starts to go up here in the yellow. What you start with is frustration and worry, but as it builds, as that line goes up, it moves to some deeper emotions: anger, fear, rage, panic. So we go from having a worry to all out panic, because as we stay stressed, so over here on the left side, the axis going up, this is arousal increases. So arousal means you keep perceiving threats. You keep perceiving threats. So that line goes up. So now we go from being worried to all out panic. We go from being frustrated to rage. That happens when we stay stressed. What's happening in our body that we're not even noticing? Okay, so over on the right in the yellow that you may not be able to read, so all of the cardiovascular things that some of it you're aware of, like you can feel your heart start to beat fast. You might feel your breathing go faster. So those are cardiovascular responses. But also your body starts kicking out blood sugar because it knows it needs energy to fight or flight, right? To run or to fight. So now, even if you haven't eaten any food, your glucose levels are going to go up. So if you have trouble with managing your blood sugar, if you have trouble with any metabolic issues, if you have trouble with your weight, if you have insulin resistance, meaning you're resistant to the insulin and what it's supposed to do. When we have more blood sugar going around in our circulation, the pancreas releases insulin to get that sugar out of the blood. Insulin stands at the door and says, come on, sugar, get out of the blood. Let's lower that amount that's there right now. Insulin resistance means your body starts to ignore that insulin. It doesn't have the effect. And that leads to a whole host of health problems. Insulin resistance is not good at all. And it affects the hormones. So all of that is happening when you're staying in this elevated stress state. Okay. Oxygen, the way you circulate your oxygen changes because the body thinks, I need it for certain things, so I'm not going to send it to other parts of the body. You're regulating, or you're divvying up resources in the body, and somebody's got to sacrifice. Some part of the body is going to be sacrificed. So all of those things go up. What goes down is, as I said, your insulin activity. Your digestion goes down. I talked about down here in the green section, digestion went up. It was improved. It worked better. Now digestion goes down when you stay stressed. Your immune system response goes down, and your ability to relate. So it says relational ability, your ability to relate to people, to problem solve, to be creative, to be open. It's the opposite of everything we said here. I know I'm speaking kind of quickly because I want to get back and check and see if anybody's leaving comments. But when we get stressed, the goal is deal with the stress, and then at some point it needs to come back down. Now in this chart, it keeps going up into the red zone, and we're going to talk about that next. But the way our body is designed is to have your stress go up and then have it come back down. Over here it says deactivation. So you deactivate your stress response and you return back to this resting state, the green, right? That's what's supposed to happen. If you stay in long-term stress, so this was short-term, acute stress, something happens and you got to deal with it and then you recover. Long-term stress would be anything really even more than a day. Like if you just stay stressed, that's now long-term. But if you're going through a difficult divorce, if you are a caregiver for someone and you don't get a break for yourself, if you have financial issues, if you have relationship issues, those are all things that could be happening, in the past year, 2 years, couple of years. But there's also the things that we hold in our body that we've been holding for years and years and years and years, for decades. And those are the things that come from our childhood. So if you, like for myself, I grew up in an alcoholic household. When you grow up in a household that is dysfunctional in any way, it's stressful. The children are stressed in the household because they're not sure when is it going to be okay. They're not sure if there's going to be a fight happening. They're not sure about a lot of things. So whether it's alcoholism, whether it's parents who are just stressed too much from working a lot, whether it's, a single parent household, whatever it is, children can get into this stressed state and then stay there. Their nervous system will stay there as they go day after day after day after day, kind of in that hyper aware. Is something bad going to happen? What do I need to be doing? And then over time, the nervous system, now we're up in this red zone. So this is called the freeze zone. Freeze. Like you can't sustain the fight or flight, the yellow zone forever. You can't. Your body says, nope, can't keep doing that. It goes into this freeze state. And here's what you might notice. You have a feeling of helplessness. You feel disengaged or, like you're just disengaged, that you are separated from, you're dissociated. Here's the word right here, dissociated from what's going on around you. You feel like you shut down a little bit or a lot. There's a sense of hopelessness. You feel trapped. So when you've been for a long time in a stressed state, that's the way that you're feeling. Depressed. I love this play on words because it really speaks a lot, I believe. Depressed, deep rest. It's like the body stayed so stressed for so long. It's now you've got to rest, and you get pulled into a depression, a numbness. That's how life feels. The problem is, if you stay in this elevated state long enough, it does threaten your life. Now you are in a life-threatening situation because things are really not working well together. Let's look over here at the right again, in case you can't read this. This is what's happening unbeknownst to you in your body. These things you might be aware of. I get depressed, I shut down, I feel hopeless, I dissociate. You might be aware of those. Over here, you may not be aware of. So what happens? Now, instead of your heart rate and your cardiovascular system going up like it did here in the fight or flight, now it actually goes down. You have this feeling of apathy. You can't even get yourself going throughout your day. That depressed feeling, because things have just started to shut down and say, we can't sustain that any longer. So your heart rate, your blood pressure goes down, your temperature, your muscle tone, even the face. You can get a very flat affect. It says your facial expression and eye contact. We withdraw from people when we're here. I remember in I think I would say my early 30s, really being in this place for a while. And then also again, after my daughter was born, and I was a caregiver for a very, very sick child for a long period of time. But in the first few years of her life, I was there again as well. But I really do remember that feeling separate. It's like life feels a little bit surreal and you don't know how to get yourself back into it. What else happens? Decreases social behavior. You take yourself away. You don't return calls. You don't say yes to social engagements, things that used to make you happy, you're not even interested in anymore. Again, it's like a shutting down or a keeping yourself separate. Sexual response goes down, immune response goes down. So the immune system is down, and anything that's not in rest, your immune system is struggling. And that's why we see the increase of autoimmune conditions, especially in women. Autoimmune conditions are on the rise because the immune system, when it's not able to function the way it wants to down here in this green zone, it starts to get confused. It starts to not function the way it's meant. And it's actually, now turning on its own tissues, so to speak. It's like not recognizing self. Just like you don't feel like yourself, the immune system doesn't recognize self. And that's what happens. So what goes up when we're in the freeze mode? Fuel storage, meaning you hold fat. If you're struggling with your weight, if you try to lose weight and you can't do it and you can't find a reason why, I would look at, do I have long-term stress that I've been holding in my body and in my nervous system? Because you're going to hold weight until you allow that to calm down. Your insulin, again, is going to be all wonky, and that's going to lead to your metabolic disorders. Immobilization behavior with fear. Immobilization means you feel frozen like a deer in headlights. You're not participating in life. Okay? Endorphins that help numb and raise the pain threshold because you're in pain. This is likened to an animal, like let's say a deer is being chased by a lion. I don't think they live in the same areas, but let's just go with it for today. A deer or a gazelle or a zebra, whatever you want to pick. And the lion attacks it and catches it. While that animal is still alive, this is where it goes into a freeze state. And that numbness and that endorphins that numb the pain, that's to help it deal with the situation that it finds itself in. And the same thing happens to us. We're not being attacked by a lion. We just have stayed in stress for a really, really long time. So when you're up here in this freeze zone, when if you're noticed that you've dissociated or you're getting depressed or you feel shut down, that's really your body's way of telling you you've got to do something. You've got to get yourself and your body back to a regulated state, because after a while, there's enough things that it's very difficult to unravel them. Hopefully, if you don't get yourself there, even if you're in fight or flight a lot, if you start to do what it takes to get your nervous system regulated, you can get yourself back down into deactivation quicker. And whatever things have started to really shift in your body, you can start to unravel them and get your symptoms and your health issues back to a better place. So this is really clear in terms of health issues. I think it's pretty clear, but it's also whatever's been going on in relationships or in patterns at work. Same thing, because as we saw here, whether you're curious, open-minded, you feel safe, you're able to problem solve, you're able to communicate well, you feel grounded. If those things are not happening, it can only affect your relationships and your job. Okay. Oh, hi. So here I just went back to making that screen smaller. So hi, Sue. Thanks for saying hello. Hi, Trish. Hi, Alyssa. Okay, I'm just looking for any questions about that. I so love that you guys said hi. I don't see any questions. So I just want you to think about that, because I think that there is an acceptance of stress in our life today, because our life is stressful, because that is how our culture is. And people go, yeah, I'm stressed. Everybody's stressed, or I've always been stressed. But that doesn't mean it has to be that way. It might take something to really get yourself out of it. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's not the normal. Just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. It's not normal for your body. It's not how your body can function, and it's not how you feel happy in your life. Happy, successful, peaceful. It just isn't. What does it mean, attunement to the human voice? And it's, I'm trying to think of how we could say that. So you're much more sensitive. It's like you can't, when people are saying something, you're very sensitive to the tone of voice and how you're making it mean about yourself. I think that's the best way I could think of to describe it. So I hope you can see this chart. I'm just going to remove it now. Okay. So I just really wanted you to have an idea, an understanding of what happens when I first am stressed, how long I stay in that stressed mode, what happens in my body, what happens to the different systems in my body, how does that show up in my life, and when I stay highly stressed for a long period of time, how I actually move into a whole nother state. And that's a much more difficult state on your body. And it feels a lot harder as well, but you can get out of it. You can get yourself back into safety, back into a regulated nervous system, all of those things, okay? If you have questions about that, that is a big part of the work that I do with people. My own autoimmune conditions came from decades of being stressed in ways that I didn't even realize, that stemmed back from my very early childhood. So that was the root of my autoimmune conditions. But life continues to bring us stress. You have to actually not only unravel what's happened in the past, but get the tools to be able to move through when things are happening that are upsetting or stressful. How do I manage myself so I don't go into this arc of stress and have all of these things happen in my body? So as a transformational health coach, that's exactly what I do. So please reach out to me if you are feeling like it's a significant problem in your life and you want to get the support and the partnership and all the things to be able to turn that around. Okay? All right, my friends, have a great week. I'm sure I'll see you tomorrow over a cup of coffee, hopefully. And I'll look for any comments that are here that I can't see now and address them as soon as I can. Okay? Have a great night.